before the disease can spread. But it's a dangerous race against time. To survive, the patient's immune system has to work faster than the virus, or it will run out of control. 1 in 50 of those inoculated will die. But Washington's gamble pays off. New cases of smallpox fall from several thousand to just a few dozen. But to win the war against the British, Washington turns to an unlikely hero to transform his ragtag militia into a formidable fighting machine. 1778. George Washington's Patriot Army survives a hard winter and an outbreak of smallpox at Valley Forge. Now, Washington introduces a new recruit who will change the course of the war. Baron von Steuben is an ex-Prussian army officer, an elite soldier whose career is said to have been ruined by his homosexuality. But Washington makes him one of the most powerful men in his command.
Washington was a genius in taking people in who didn't seem like they could achieve great things, but under him, they rose to the challenge, they rose to the occasion. And that's what great leaders do.
Von Steuben's task, reinvent the demoralized Patriot Army so they can take on the British in a close fight.
Our arms are in horrible condition, covered with rust. Our men are literally naked, some to the fullest extent of the word.
Von Steuben starts by drilling discipline into Washington's ragtag recruits. The men are unlike any he has ever trained before.
The genius of this nation is not in the least to be compared with that of the Prussians or Austrians or French. You say to your soldier, do this, and he does it. But here, I'm obliged to say, this is the reason why you ought to do that, and then he does it.
Von Steuben brings order, discipline, and hygiene to Valley Forge. He moves latrines away from living quarters, rebuilds the kitchens on the opposite side of the camp, and organizes housing according to regiments and companies. His biggest contribution, he writes a manual on military training with methods that are still in use today. Von Steuben drills European battle tactics into an elite corps of 100 men. Each will train 100 more. He also teaches them a new and deadly weapon, the bayonet. Bayonet fighting will prove pivotal in the battles ahead. Bayonets allow rifles to double as spears, making close hand-to-hand combat possible without reloading. But it's not just new weapons and skills von Steuben gives the Patriots. It's a new attitude.
You know, we can talk about weapons and how certain weapons change the face of warfare, which is absolutely true. But the greatest weapon that you could ever have is right up here.
Men like Plum Martin leave Valley Forge highly skilled killers. While they retrain, another secret war has been raging in British-occupied New York. Here, a network of spies has been busy passing information to the rebels. Their leader is George Washington himself.
A man who's come down to us in history as someone who is incapable of telling a lie succeeds as a commander, in no small measure because of his capacity for deception.
A British general will later claim that Washington did not outfight his enemies, but outspy them. Now his French allies come under deadly threat, and only his secret army of spies can save them from disaster. In New York, an estimated 20% of the population is still loyal to the British. Food costs are up 800%. One young woman in 5 is a prostitute. To the British, New York merchant Robert Townsend is a loyalist. A member of the Loyalist militia, he writes for the Loyalist press. But to Washington's spy network, his code name is Culper Jr., a fact that was only discovered in 1939. Culper's gang will change the course of the war. By July 1781, New York is buzzing with rumor. A French fleet has been sighted off Rhode Island. News leaks out that the British plan to send warships from New York for a surprise attack. Culper must get word to Washington to somehow stop the British fleet. The spies use invisible ink, an advanced formula unknown to the British. The ink is made from gallic acid. It can only be revealed by brushing the paper in liquid iron sulfate. The next link in the chain is Austin Rowe, a tavern owner from Long Island. His contact, Abraham Woodhull, picks up the message and buries it at a secret drop. Another agent, Anne Smith Strong, then uses her laundry as a secret code. It signals a sailor who picks up the message and takes it to Washington. Washington moves troops towards New York, threatening the city, forcing the British fleet to stay put in New York Harbor. The French fleet sails out of danger. It will play a critical role in the next stage of the war. Now, with a spy network and a modern army backed by French naval power, Washington is ready for a final showdown. October 1781. 6 years into a war the British thought would last 6 months, the American Revolution comes to a head at Yorktown, Virginia. In trenches around the fortified city, Plum Martin, now a sergeant, waits with 8,000 other Patriot soldiers for the signal to attack. Washington's army has reinvented itself with sharpshooters, with training, discipline, and new weapons, and with a spy network that has saved the French fleet, giving the rebels dominance at sea. What remains of the British Army is under siege in Yorktown. Trapped in the city, the Redcoats wait for reinforcements. But back in Britain, the war is unpopular and costing far too much money.
This is a case of hanging on in the face of the British actions long enough to where the British literally would grow weary of this and realize that it was endless.
This is Washington's chance to end the war with one decisive blow.
He committed to this idea of being able to stand on your own. See, America is a dream, and the only way to go get that dream is to show up and bring your very best to that moment and not stop until you bring that dream into existence.
Plum Martin will be one of the first over the top.
Godspeed. How you doing, old friend?
Good. How are you?
Good to check it out.
Behind Yorktown's defenses, 9,000 battle-hardened British troops are waiting. They're protected by a series of outlying cannon forts called redoubts. By October 14th, just 2 remain. If they're captured and their guns turned on Yorktown, the British will be forced to surrender.
All the batteries in our line lay silent. We lay anxiously waiting for the signal.
Patriots race 100 yards to the British lines under fire and a hail of hand grenades. A force of 400 break through and storm the British fort. Fighting in close combat with bayonets, they beat the redcoats back.
Immediately after the fighting had ceased, I went out to see what had become of my wounded friend. He was dead.
34 of Martin's comrades lie dead or wounded. But they've breached Yorktown's defenses. 2 days later, the British surrender and begin negotiations for peace. For the past 6 years, leadership, training, weapons, and intelligence have been vital. The rebels have achieved the impossible. The United States is the only country to win independence from the British in war. On April 30th, 1789, Washington is inaugurated first President of the United States of America under the new Constitution. But liberty comes at a price. Over 25,000 men